The year is 1964, September 4th to be precise. The location, Cisco Grove, California. 28-year-old Donald Shrum and his two friends, Vincent Alvarez and Tim Trueblood, are bow hunting in the northern portion of California in the Tahoe National Forest. All three were very experienced hunters and no stranger to camping in the outdoors. After a long day of hunting, the three agreed to continue hunting, but in separate directions, in hopes of finding their target. They had agreed that they would all meet up in the morning at their original campsite. As the darkness of the night closed in, Shrum decided to call it quits and settle down until sunrise. Shrum decided to strap himself up in a tree using a large army-issued belt that made up a part of his hunting attire. Shortly after strapping himself in for the night, Shrum noticed a light had appeared in the sky, and it was flying in what he said was a zigzaggy pattern through the trees at a very low altitude. Shrum thought the light was a helicopter organized by his fellow hunters, Alvarez and Trueblood, fearing that he might be missing. Shrum released the belt that was holding him securely to the tree and fired 3 of his flares to aid in his retrieval. He started waving his arms and shouting to help the searchers even more. As the light came closer, Shrum realized that the craft wasn't a helicopter at all. As he stood there, the light stopped around 150 feet from him. Shrum climbed back up the tree and readied his weapon, a bow and some arrows. As he watched, 3 humanoid creatures exited the craft and started to walk towards his location. As they got closer, Shrum was able to see that, while 2 of the creatures were in fact humanoid, the third was much more robot-like. The 2 humanoid creatures approached and started to shake the tree, presumably to make Shrum fall. Shrum held on tightly, and the robotic one approached and released an acrid white smoke from its mouth. As Shrum would go on to explain, the smoke knocked him unconscious for a short time. Upon regaining consciousness, Shrum managed to shoot an arrow at the robot. Presumably it hit the robot, as there were sparks that were flying through the air. As fast as he could, he shot 2 more arrows at the trio of creepies, forcing them to back away. Before Shrum could drop down from the tree and run, a second robot appeared from the dark forest. This robot also released the white smoke, which caused Shrum to become nauseous and dizzy. When Shrum again regained his senses, he saw that the 2 humanoids were trying to climb the tree. Having no more arrows, he resorted to lighting things on fire. Pieces of his clothing, pine cones, branches, even his baseball cap. He also resorted to throwing a handful of coins. Suddenly, behind the creepies, the glowing craft shot upwards, leaving the 4 entities still trying to get Shrum. A third robot appeared and released a black smoke, and Shrum lost consciousness altogether. When he finally regained consciousness, dawn had arrived, and there were no entities to be seen. Dazed and tired, he lowered himself from the tree and made his way to the original campground, and he met up with Alvarez and Trueblood. After Shrum shared his story, they all returned to the site and found pieces of burnt clothing and his arrows, although the coins were missing. Shrum would eventually go on to inform the military of his experience. They would set up an interview with Shrum, but not on a military base. The meeting was held in an off-base building with nothing in it. The military also confiscated all of the arrows, leaving no real proof of the experience except for the bizarre story. Now I ask you, what are your thoughts? Do you believe his story? Let us know in the comments below. And until next time, my ghoulies and goblins, stay curious.